Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to give some feedback on Aiaru's speaking test. So let's have a look.
Good morning, my name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
My name is Aiaru IELTS.
And what should I call you?
You can call me Aiaru.
Okay, thank you. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Kazakhstan. It's very popular country in Central Asia.
I don't know what a popular country means. Maybe well known or famous, but a popular country sounds a bit strange. Maybe populous, meaning like there are a lot of people there, but not quite sure with popular country.
And what town or city do you live in?
I live in Almaty, and it's located in southeastern region of Kazakhstan, and it's very popular for its tourist destinations and the spectacular nature.
Okay, the stuff with spectacular nature feels a little bit rehearsed, strange. I like a little bit of extra detail, like where you're from. I'm from, it is maybe located, something fact-based is fine, but I haven't asked you about your opinion about it yet, so just be careful when you're answering questions. Think about the logical answer to these questions or the reasonable answer to these questions. If you're asked a fact-based thing, where are you from? Some fact-based information, fine. Maybe a little bit of an opinion, but don't go into it too much. But okay, I understand everyone does this in IELTS. Part one for me, the first set of questions is just to get rid of all of the preparation and to find the candidate's real speaking. So we're not quite there yet.
Mountains and lakes.
And do you like living in this place?
Yes, I like it very much. For example, as I said before, I am fond of nature.
Just notice the breakdown there. I am fond of the nature. And it seems, this is the candidate trying to access the word fond of. I think if she'd used the word like, I like the nature, it would have come out a lot more naturally. So it's one reason why I prefer it when candidates avoid using or avoid trying to use difficult language, because usually it breaks their fluency down. You can just hear it again.
As I said before, I am fond of nature.
I am fond of nature. The fond of stands out differently in the sentence to everything else, right? I like the nature. Fine. I am fond of the nature. Just sounds a little bit off.
Of Almaty, and it's very popular among young people also because it offers.
When she's saying it's very popular among young people, this is her natural emergent language. This is not language it's not like her IELTS language, it's her regular English, and her regular English is phenomenal. Her IELTS language is a little bit strange. Pronunciation is absolutely on point. So nice.
There's very good scholarships, and it has good places to study, like universities and colleges.
Cool. So candidate seemed like for a moment she just forgot those words, colleges or universities, but she paraphrased with places to study, so all good.
And how do young people spend their free time in this place?
I think it depends on a person. Sometimes young people usually prefer to go to cinemas or like shopping malls to purchase some items like clothes.
To purchase some items. Again, maybe the candidate has been told in the IELTS test, don't use buy, use purchase, because purchase is a better word than buy. For me, it sounds strange in a conversation. If a friend said, oh, what did you do at the weekend? I would never say I purchased some items. It just sounds like cold or overly formal or a little bit inappropriate. I'm not saying that I would mark the candidate down for this, but I bought some stuff. I'm far more impressed by I bought some stuff than I purchased some items. Purchase some items just seems, not the tone, not the register that we're looking for.
And sometimes people go to theatre in terms of cultural diversity.
People go to the theatre in terms of cultural diversity. I'm a big fan of in terms of. I just don't see how it works here. They go to the cinema in terms of cultural diversity. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
They go to theatre or museums, which is actually quite popular among young people.
Okay, so candidates maybe just struggling a little bit to give like fully coherent and direct answers. Probably, I guess she's trapped in, she has a range of emotions going through her mind. The candidate clearly knows English very well, right? Let's get that out of the way. The candidate knows English very well. Candidate's probably a little bit nervous speaking to a stranger, a strange stranger for the first time. She knows it's being recorded and it's like an IELTS test, so she feels some of the nerves of the test. And so all of this can have an effect on the type of language we produce. I just wish the candidate would just treat it like a conversation and use her regular English, not use her test English. You don't need test English. Your English is already good enough, and trying to use test English will only pull your score down.
Let's talk about your free time now. Do you prefer spending your free time indoors or outdoors?
I usually spend my time indoors. I'm usually at home. I usually watch
Just get 3 usuallys back to back. I mean, it's okay, but when we're looking for flexibility, we don't really see that, like usually and I usually and usually. So you could just drop usually. You could change it to often or sometimes or something like this. Or I tend to do something.
different kind of movies or like TV series or read books, and often I prepare for my exams.
Well, I prepare for my exams. Good.
And in terms of outdoors, I sometimes go
This is good use of in terms of. So now the candidate's really warming up and showing some good stuff.
outdoors, for example, to shopping malls, to cinemas with my friends, or to theatre.
So we've kind of heard theatre and cinema now like 3 times, I think. So, okay.
With my classmates too.
And how often do you try new activities?
I would say I try
Cool. I love this, I would say. Very nice.
it quite fairly
I tried quite fairly. I don't know what fairly means here. Fairly could be used as like an adverb with a synonym of quite. So, I'm fairly comfortable. I'm quite comfortable. I do it quite fairly. Maybe the candidate means rarely. I often feel like some words like regularly and rarely, they're so difficult to pronounce in English. And I often say just find a synonym instead of saying rarely. Use hardly ever. I hardly ever do that. Hardly ever put that before the verb. I hardly ever do that. Just sounds, for me, hardly ever sounds nicer too. And instead of regularly, I prefer like often, usually. Let's just listen again, sorry.
And how often do you try new activities?
I would say I try it quite fairly, once in a blue moon maybe.
Cool, this once in a blue moon, maybe it's an idiom, and I feel like it is appropriately used here. Once in a blue moon, maybe. I really feel, even though I know that the candidate is just trying to activate an idiom, I think it's fine. I'm not a big believer in using idioms in the IELTS test. I think in general, idioms, again, pull your language down. They make you sound forced. They make you sound unnatural. But I think here, this is a naturally used idiom, and I think it's appropriate. Great, good stuff.
I remember that recently I went to another city in Kazakhstan.
So really linking those went to, good connected speech.
And this is the only things that I remember now.
But maybe the weak form of to. I went to another city. Oh no, to one other. I went to another city. Cool, sorry.
Which was unusual.
Cool, like this little tagging on this this relative clause of comment, which was unusual. I think, that's very natural extension.
Now let's move on and talk about reading. What type of books do you prefer reading?
I would say it depends on my mood and my preferences because they change quite frequently.
Cool, they change quite frequently. Very nice.
But now I am paying more attention to Kazakh literature.
Paying more attention to, so the sentence stress isn't quite, I'm paying more attention to Kazakh literature. I'm paying more attention to Kazakh literature. So it's an interesting thing in English with phrase, whether we should pronounce the strong form of prepositions. Now this is only for like high level people. If you're aiming for a band 7 or something, you really don't need to worry too much about it. But for band 8s and band 9, we would expect for pronunciation, to understand which forms are strong and which forms are weak. You might not know about it, but we have these things called phrasal verbs, like to take out or to give up or to pass on. But we also have these things that we call dependent prepositions, which is like wait for someone, listen to something, pay attention to something, to depend on something. Now, in the phrasal verbs, we tend to stress the phrasal verbs. So in the end, I just gave up. But, or let's say, I bought some shoes, but at first I made sure that I tried them on. So we get that full form of on, but in these dependent prepositions, we don't want the full form of the preposition. So, for example, we don't say I listen to music like we would in a phrasal verb, but I listen to music. I listen to music. It depends on the situation. Or I waited for my friends. So we tend to use the weak form of prepositions when they are dependent prepositions, but the full form of prepositions when they are phrasal verbs. Now, I feel sorry for people who try to learn this stuff, but the candidate, after the test, I told the candidate she's probably band 8 with pronunciation. And one of her questions was, what's stopping me from getting the band 9? My response was, you should focus on the other things. Don't worry, band 8 is already fine. But those are the kind of small things that might stop you from getting a band 9, where it's like, the sentence stress there it isn't perfect. Now, you don't have to be perfect to get a band 9, but if this becomes, if this regularly happens, if at the end of the test I can say, yeah, the candidate regularly used the strong forms of prepositions when she should have used the weak forms of prepositions, that can sometimes be enough to take it from a 9 to an 8. But explaining differences between 9s and 8s, that's difficult, because even the words that we use to explain those differences aren't known by the majority of people who speak English. But anyway, let's crack on. Phrasal verb, full form of on. Let's crack on.
Because now I am preparing for different kind of exams.
Preparing for a different kind of exam. Preparing for a different kind. So maybe the 4 is okay there, but okay.
For universities, and I study history of Kazakhstan, and I became more and more interested in the history of it.
So candidate definitely feels like now we are getting into the candidate's real language, it seems. We've forgotten about that like spectacular views and all of that stuff that's prepared. Now the candidate's using natural English, and she's doing a great job of extending her answers.
So therefore I started reading different kind of books in the Kazakh language.
No, so therefore, just so, or just therefore, but okay.
So I started reading historical book, and it's very interesting for me.
And do you have a favorite time of the day when you like reading?
I would say I don't have any favorite time for reading. I read when I have a free time in my spare time, and then
when I have a free time, when I have some free time, maybe.
When I feel like I want to study.
So it just sounds a little bit like Phil, when I feel like I want to study. So, of course, this is a minimal pair. These words fill and feel. They are different only with one sound. Famously, we have like ship and sheep. There is even a book on pronunciation called Ship and Sheep, I believe. Fill and feel, they are different words. And so the candidate isn't, fully precise with that phonological feature, with that I versus E, I, E, I, E, I, E. Fill and feel, ship and sheep. Not quite there.
So therefore, there is no perfect time for me.
And are there any books that you'd like to read in the future?
Love the intonation. No perfect time for me. It sounds almost Californian. The accent of the candidate is quite interesting. There are some cases where I feel like, oh, that's very, very American. And then there are other parts where I feel, oh, that's very, very British. So yeah, it's, in the past I remember Cambridge often said in the past that you should be consistent with the variety of English that you use, but nowadays nobody really cares about that anymore. It's okay to mix a little bit of British and American, I guess.
Yes, I would like to read different kind of classic books, maybe.
Maybe I would like to read different kinds of classic books.
I'm fond of Jane Austen's books, and I would like to read Emma.
Again, we get this fond of. I'm not a big fan of fond of. But Jane Austen, Emma, it's also on my reading list. I recently read Pride and Prejudice. I wasn't blown away by it. I think she is quite insightful, but yeah, I don't know. I'm going back and trying to read some British literature because I haven't read much British classic literature. I prefer writing books from authors from other countries, but I love classic literature. But I don't know, Jane Austen, it was all right. It was all right. Anyway, sidetracked.
And nothing, and many other books of her. And then also, I would like to read.
There's that British, and then also I would like to read, and then also. So there are parts that are American, like absolutely, there's no perfect time, and then parts I would also like to read, parts which are a little bit British. But again, she shows really, really good control of phonological features. Her pronunciation is just beautiful.
The books of Agatha Christie. I read several.
Agatha or Agatha? Probably. I know the candidate is from Kazakhstan. She said she speaks a little bit of Russian, and I know Agatha, maybe. Agatha Christina. I don't know.
Books of her, and it was very interesting for me, and I just love the characters of her books. Yeah.
And do you like reading non-fiction books?
Yes, I like it actually very much. For example, I'm interested in science, especially in physics and maybe geography. So recently I started reading a book which is called As Sapiens, and it tells about the history of humankind.
Not tells about, but talks about, maybe, or speaks about.
And I was very interested in that, and
it is an interesting book. I read that one a few years ago, and yeah, it's good.
I find it very engaging, because it tells about the history of.
Talks about, not tells about. Okay.
Mankind and how they developed and why.
Mankind, okay. Humankind is more broadly used now, but mankind, that's okay.
Only one species of humans has left now.
Not has left, but is left. So left here is used as an adjective. It's a participle adjective. It comes from the verb to leave, but we use like to be left. So why there is only one species of human left. So to be left, oh, you open the fridge. Oh, there's no milk left. There is no milk left. So be left, not have left. I know probably you're thinking present perfect, have, has, done, have, has, left. But no, this is like I am finished. I am done. There is one species of human left. So not quite right there with the grammar.
Okay, thank you. Now, in this next part.
All right, so let's have a breakdown of candidates part 1. So first thing to notice is that the pronunciation is very, 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 very strong. Maybe not quite enough for a 9, but very, very high. I didn't like the first few answers to the questions. I felt they were a little bit rehearsed, but then the candidate, her fluency really took off and she's extending her answers very well. There are occasions where she breaks down just a little bit in the middle of sentences, and that sometimes affects her pronunciation a little bit. But in general, I think she can speak at length without really, showing too much difficulty or too much pain. So all of that is good stuff. Vocab is really good. She really hits her dependent prepositions, to prepare for or depend on, that type of stuff. That's good. She got an idiomatic expression in there, which was, good. Once in a blue moon, I felt like that was the appropriate time. A little bit of mechanical overuse of things like fond of and spectacular, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but I'm not going to mark her down for that. I just would like to see less of that later in the test. We'll see. And grammar, quite accurate, actually very accurate. A nice range of structures, not always perfect. A couple of minor mistakes, but I think her range and control of grammar is pretty good. But I definitely want to listen more to this grammar, because there are so many things now that I'm thinking about the speech. So I think in part 2, I want to focus a little bit on grammar. Let's see what her task is for task 2. So she has to describe a time when she or someone she knows made a lifestyle change to improve health. Again, this is a past time turn, so you can use a lot of past time constructions. You can use reported speech. You can use past modals, future in the past. A lot of opportunities to exploit our beautiful English grammar. But let's see how the candidate does.
To remind you, you will have between 1 and 2 minutes to give your talk, and I will let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
So now I want to talk about a person who made a lifestyle change to improve her physical health.
Okay, she's taking a bit of time to introduce. I think you can just get into it. Let me tell you about my friend, and then that's it.
And now I am going to talk about my friend who
Okay, taking just a bit too much time to get into it. So let me tell you about my friend. Her name is his name is I keep going.
recently started having a healthy lifestyle.
She recently started having a. That sounds strange. She recently started having a healthy lifestyle. Maybe that's okay.
And we are close friends now. And
Maybe started following a healthy lifestyle or adopted a healthier lifestyle. I don't know.
And I know that many years ago, she used to eat different kind of junk food,
Cool. She used to eat nice.
maybe like burgers and pizzas. I remember that very well. But she decided to
Cool. Hitting the adverb. I remember that very well. Nice.
change her lifestyle because it was very overwhelming for her to consume this kind of
And again, that word overwhelming just feels like it's strategically placed. It was overwhelming for her to consume. I don't know if that really makes sense, does it? It was overwhelming. What, she was like so confused by so many different emotions from eating this stuff? I don't know.
junk food and healthy snacks. And so therefore she decided to change some her habits and track them on a regular
She decided to change
basis.
on a regular basis. Good vocab.
So she, for example, she started working out on a regular basis.
Okay, she started working out, getting that full form of out, good, but then on a regular basis is just repeated immediately after. So just be careful with that. That's now a couple of cases, a couple of times where we've had like repetition of words or phrases like back to back quite a few times. So be careful with that.
Several times a week. And then she made some changes to her nutrition, to her diet, like drinking
Cool, to make some changes to something. Very nice.
2 liters of water every day. And also she made some changes to her sleeping schedule. And I would say it was very amazing experience for her.
Very amazing isn't right. Really amazing, absolutely amazing, fine, but not very amazing.
And she's having very healthy lifestyle now.
She's having a very she's having a very healthy lifestyle. So have a healthy lifestyle here is a stative verb, and we don't usually use stative verbs in the continuous. Like we don't usually say I'm wanting or I'm loving or I'm liking. This is becoming more and more popular, the use of stative verbs in the continuous. So who knows, maybe in 10 years it would be okay, but to my ear it still sounds strange. She is having a healthy lifestyle
nowadays. And actually, I find it very inspirational. And
so now it feels like that's the end of the candidate's turn, and I don't know, it feels now like she's reaching for language that she's not quite sure what to say, and so the fluency just becomes a little bit odd.
Inspiring for me.
It's inspirational, it's inspiring for me. Again, that's not flexible with vocab.
To have such a good, healthy lifestyle. And then I see that.
So you can kind of see it, right? The candidate, this isn't now from her notes. I play some chess, right? And sometimes you have a plan of how you're going to open. And so your first moves are all very fast because you know exactly what you're going to do. And then your opponent plays something unexpected, and then you have to sit for a long time to think about it. And now it feels like, the candidate did her preparation, she delivered her speech, and she got to 1 minute 20, and now she's out of her prep, and now she has to think for herself, and she has to produce this language, and it is quite noticeable. So learning, this is just technique, this is just exam technique, IELTS technique, learning how to take your notes, learning how to extract your notes and fill 2 minutes using your notes in your preparation. It's just technique.
So I see that actually she made very spectacular, very amazing change.
Very spectacular. Again, we don't use really spectacular. Yes. Absolutely spectacular. Yes. Very spectacular. No.
Just to her health. For example, I see that that actually her weight is
You can see, right? Candid is breaking down because she's out of prep.
Is getting normal now
Her weight is getting normal. Okay, that's fine.
than she was in the past because it was very overwhelming for her in the past.
Pronunciation also breaks down because the fluency breaks down. I mean, it just becomes a little bit staccato, a bit like this, just a little.
Now I see that also she became more energetic and full
Okay,
of
thank you.
excitement.
Okay, she hits a bit of language, she became more energetic. So she does, in spite of the fact that she's broken down, she doesn't stop. She doesn't stop speaking. She still continues speaking and she still hits a few nice words like her weight is getting normal or she's become really energetic. So she still hits some good vocab there. So grammar, a decent range. I wouldn't say like a full range that's there was a little bit of repetition, like make changes to something was used a couple of times, but the grammar is very, very well controlled. Possibly a wider range of structures might be required for like an 8 or a 9, but she's certainly at that C1 level of controlling her grammar. Accuracy is very good. But let's get into part 3, or any other comments about part 2. So yeah, grammar is well controlled. She is at that C1 level for grammar. Pronunciation is still great, wonderful. When she breaks down with fluency, sometimes her pronunciation becomes a little bit more mechanical. Fine. I felt like her fluency suffered, in the last 30 or 40 seconds of this turn because she was out of preparation. She was not panicking, but it was quite clear that she wasn't able to maintain that full flow of speech for the whole 2 minutes. Vocab again good, but I think, overwhelming was strangely used, and then she used inspirational and inspiring together, and very spectacular, very amazing. So a little bit of strange stuff with the vocab, but in general, vocab was sufficient to talk about this friend. So let's get to part 3.
Yeah.
All right, so you've been talking about a time when your friend made a lifestyle change. Let's talk about health now. What do you think are some of the causes of poor health in modern society?
I think that it's
Candidate is hesitating here, but I think it is clear that the candidate isn't hesitating because of a language-related issue. She is hesitating in order to prepare content for her answer. So absolutely fine.
for example, I see that many people sleep for about 5 or 6 hours a day, and it
Yes, we do. Yeah, guilty.
significantly damages their health.
It does.
For example,
I like that significantly. It might feel a little bit formal. It significantly damages their health, but I'd still like it.
they feel very overwhelmed and tired
Again, we get that overwhelmed.
since early morning, and then, for example,
Now I think the candidate is pausing because of some language-related issues. Like she wasn't sure if it should be like from or since the early morning.
their vision also gets worse because they usually study.
Not sure. I mean, people, I think you started by saying people sleep for 5 or 6 hours and their vision gets worse because they usually study. I don't know if that's true for most people. Might be true for students.
Night and just try to, for example, students try to burn the midnight oil.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Students try to burn the midnight oil. It seems like, an idiom came to mind. Let's try to use it. I felt like it came out of nowhere. It was a little bit surprising. So I wasn't a fan of that one. Sorry.
And also, I see that people nowadays consume very unhealthy foods like junk food because it's very popular in many countries.
Yeah, I don't know how full an answer that is. People consume a lot of junk food because it's very popular. Okay, there is a reason given there, but it's not really fully developed.
And how do you think we can get people to make healthier lifestyle choices?
I think that social media can be a very good option.
It can, but can you explain now how we could use or who could use social media to promote healthy living?
For example, people use TikTok and Instagram on a regular basis.
Game we have on a regular basis, but okay.
If we try to
Okay, but how can people use TikTok and Instagram then to promote it?
provide more information about it, post different kind of pictures or like videos, reels about healthy lifestyle, I think it
Okay, that's a fair point. I don't know if it's a great strategy, but it is a fair point.
can significantly help them to start having a more healthier lifestyle.
And do you think it should be down to the individuals to make their own lifestyle choices, or do you think governments can do something to promote healthy living?
I would say that, but a little bit couldn't understand the question. Could you repeat that?
Cool, absolutely fine. In part 3, ask the examiner to repeat or even to rephrase the question, no problem.
Okay.
Whose responsibility is it to make sure that we are healthy? Is it our responsibility as individuals, or do you think governments are responsible for the health of citizens?
I think it's very individual because health is only our responsibility.
Maybe.
But I think that governments also can take some measures,
Cool, take some measures. Good.
like promoting regular events about having a healthy lifestyle, promoting it through social media and
Yeah, I'm not sure what these events might look like, and so you might want to just explain.
the internet. And also maybe in terms of individual basis, I would say we can actually work out on a regular basis and have
Okay, I think we've had workout now maybe 3 times, I'm not sure.
a healthy lifestyle in general, like improving our nutrition and diet and
Cool, nutrition and diet, very
sleeping
nice.
schedules.
Some people have predicted that in the future, humans might live to be 500 or even 1,000 years old. How likely do you think this is?
I invented that question on the spot. I don't know why I did it. I think it's a too much of a difficult question. But I think, yeah, anyway, doesn't matter.
I would say it's impossible, really, because no one had ever lived maybe more
No one have ever lived or no one has ever lived?
than 120 years, maybe.
Apparently this is a real thing. There's no reason why we have to age, get older and die. We could, just theoretically it's possible to do it, but anyway, that's not important.
But living 1,000 years is maybe something unbelievable because no one has ever lived such a long time.
Certainly seems to be unbelievable. Agree.
So I would say that it's impossible, really.
Okay, it's a difficult question to answer. I think you did an okay job.
And if it was possible, do you think it would be a good thing or a bad thing?
So we're getting into this hypothetical mood now. So we're trying to see if the candidate can recognize that now I'm not talking about like a real prediction of what will happen, but just this hypothetical world. So will we get words like would and could and things like this, or might?
I think it could be a very bad thing because
Cool. It could be a very bad thing. So she does notice it and she does use that hypothetical could. It could be a very bad thing.
like living 1,000 years is very overwhelming.
Yeah, but living 1,000 years would be overwhelming, I think, is probably better here.
And it can get quite boring, I think.
It could get quite boring. So, a bit more hypothetical language might have been suitable, but it's okay.
And when you have such a not too long period of time to live, for example, like 100 years is quite long.
So just notice how the pronunciation just falls a little bit. It just becomes a little bit staccato.
It would be a good thing or a bad thing?
Sorry.
It's very overwhelming and it can get quite boring, I think.
And it can get quite boring, I think. So it just becomes a little bit choppy, just a little bit.
And when you have such a not too long period of time.
When you have such a not too long period of time. So it's just becoming a bit staccato. And we expect that in part 3, because part 3 is difficult, and part of this is testing to see if you can still maintain that good type of pronunciation that you had in part 1 and part 2. Can you take that with you into part 3 when you're faced with the difficult questions? And I feel like your pronunciation is just falling down a little bit, and fluency just a little.
To live, for example, like 100 years is quite long for many people, of course, but I think that life can get more exciting and more interesting than to live than maybe 1,000 years.
And finally, many people say that mental health is perhaps even more important than physical health. To what extent do you agree?
I would say that I agree with this kind of statement because I know that actually
Candidate overuses kind of, I think. I think she uses kind of, like, I agree with this kind of statement. Well, I agree with this statement. It's not this kind of statement. And I noticed it a little bit earlier, but I didn't mention. I just thought maybe kind of is okay. But maybe she does overuse kind of a little bit. I agree with the statement.
mental health is connected to our physical health. For example, and also I see that actually our thoughts and
So just struggling. She doesn't have this problem too much. We have seen it with other candidates on this channel where there are like 3 or 4 ideas trying to come out of the candidate and they mix up all of those ideas. You kind of see it a little bit with this answer. Just listen again.
that actually our thoughts and mindset can change a lot of things. For example, to our physical health. For example, if we think in a very negative way, it can affect.
Sorry, just go back.
That actually our thoughts and mindset can change a lot.
Sorry.
Mental health is connected to our physical health. For example, and also I see that.
For example, when we give up on that, and also when we, so it does seem a little bit like there are competing ideas coming from the candidate.
That actually our thoughts and mindset can change a lot of things.
Cool. Mindset is a very popular word now. Good.
For example, to our physical health. For example, if we think in a very
okay, bit too much. For example,
negative way, it can affect on our health.
Candidate seems to be rushing a little bit. You can slow down. You can relax. You don't need to speak super quickly.
We can start feeling stressed and overwhelmed and burned out.
Again, we get that stressed, overwhelmed, and burnt out. So stacking adjectives. I'm not a big fan of just stacking adjective after adjective. Sometimes candidates think that that's the route to, or that's the road to a good score in vocabulary. You know, the question, how are you feeling today? Yeah, I'm all right, not too bad. You know, that's fine. But how are you feeling today? Oh, I'm feeling great, wonderful, fantastic, amazing, and terrific. It's like, I don't like that stacking, but okay.
Out, and it can cause headaches and chronic stress and
okay, headaches, chronic stress.
make some changes to our overall well-being.
So what advice would you give to someone who wanted to think more positively?
That's a tough question too.
I would say maybe feeling more grateful and practicing gratitude on a
Love that, practicing gratitude. I absolutely love that answer. Practicing gratitude. Very nice.
regular basis, for example, in the evening or in
Again, we get that on a regular basis. So some words now is just noticeably recycled.
the morning to start a day can be a very good option. For example, when you start noticing benefits and good sides of your life more and more, I think that it can make your life more better, and you start looking at your life from a different perspective.
Okay, thank you. That is the end of the test.
Okay, so a nice strong finish from the candidate here. All right, let's get into some marks from this candidate. So we're going to start with fluency and coherence, and I think I'm going to give a score of 7 for this. So the length of your answers is generally very good, and you link your ideas well and use a nice range of cohesive devices. All of that stuff for this fluency and coherence, good. Cool. However, there were in part 2 you struggled to maintain a flow of speech for the full 2 minutes. And, you know, even after 1 minute 20, it was noticeable that you were breaking down. And in part 3, you struggled slightly with some mid-sentence hesitation, just a little bit. So I think, you know, overall, you are at the C1 level with fluency and coherence. You can speak at length without noticeable difficulty and things like this. Could an examiner give you a band-aid for fluency and coherence? Absolutely. I felt like some of your answers maybe weren't quite developed enough, and yeah, so for me it's the 7, but I could imagine 8. Lexical resource, I'm also going to give 7 for this. You might be disappointed with this. Sorry about that. So you have a wonderful range of vocabulary, which allows you to speak about a number of different topics. However, you occasionally rely on vocab stacking, repetition, and mechanical use of high-level language. So I think your natural vocab is fine. I think if you forget that it's a test and just use your regular stuff, that's fine. But there were cases where like inspirational, inspiring, and on a regular basis, on a regular basis, on a regular basis, and theatre, cinema, cinema, museum, museum. So there were just a few cases where I felt like, the lexical resource was just, repeated a little bit too much in some cases. But for me, definitely enough for the 7. Remember, 7 is C1. So this isn't like, I can't say that this is big criticism of you. You should still be very, very happy getting a 7 because it's tough. Grammatical range and accuracy, I do feel like you have enough for an 8 here. So despite some slips here and there, your control accuracy of grammar is great. And you show a wide range of grammatical structures. Felt like maybe there was potential to use more stuff, like you didn't get all of the hypothetical stuff right. In part 2, you could have exploited more past time constructions. I mean, you use used to, you use past simple, I think you used past continuous, but you could have exploited a little bit more. But I think 8, should be very, very happy with the 8. And I think for pronunciation, you also have 8. You are perfectly intelligible. So it's easy to understand you without any effort at all. Can be understood perfectly without any effort. Your intonation is so on point. Wonderful, wonderful intonation there. You do struggle with some very minor things. Minimal pairs, fill versus feel. So that was there. And there are some occasions, particularly when you struggle with fluency, when your pronunciation becomes a little mechanical. Not a lot, but just like a little bit like this, a little bit at times. Not often, but at times. And for me, that's enough to pull you down to the 8. So overall, a very, very good score. 7.5, wonderful. You should be very, very happy with that. Could you get an 8? I don't know. It's tough to get an 8, isn't it? To boost that lexical resource. Yeah, forget about using difficult words. Try to be more mindful about not repeating language. You might do it. Fluency, yeah, maybe. So areas of improvement, I would definitely say there are lots of strategies. I'm not one of those content creators that says use this strategy to get a band 9. I'm not a liar like many other. Well, I'm not a liar like many other content creators that say use my techniques and you will get a band 9 easily. Nobody gets a band 9 easily. Almost nobody gets a band 9 at all. It's never going to be easy. But find a strategy for part 2. And work on it. It feels like you don't have a strategy for part 2. I'm not sure what your strategy is for part 2, but it is clear that filling that 2 minutes is a problem for you. And I think that would boost your fluency and coherence. So whatever the strategy is, whether it's 1 minute, whether it's like going to follow each point, or whether it's to invent your own points or something like this, whatever the strategy is, and you can do your own research about the different strategies for part 2, just having any strategy will help you, I think, and sticking to that strategy. Be a little careful with repetition of vocab. I'm not saying, you can't use on a regular basis more than once. Absolutely, you can use it once or twice. Certainly, if you've just used the word usually, try not to use the word usually immediately after. If you've just used the word inspirational, try not to use the word inspiring maybe immediately after. So just be careful with your variety of vocab there. And also, most importantly, stop trying to let's just use the word insert high level vocab into your speaking. In most cases, this attempt to use high level vocab is damaging your fluency. You don't need it. Your vocab is already super, super strong. Forcing yourself to use burn the midnight oil and overwhelming and spectacular, that isn't doing you any favors. If it naturally comes up, if it naturally emerges and you feel like it's the right time to use it, fine. But don't strategize and think, how can I use the word spectacular? How can I use the phrase burn the midnight oil? Don't approach it that way. And there was one more point I wanted to add too. There was definitely another point. But okay, I guess I can't think of it. I can't think of it right now. But there was a fourth point. But okay. Candidate has a very strong level. Candidate has C1. She should be very, very happy. Could she get an 8? Yes. Would I be surprised if she got an 8? Absolutely not. Do I know people who've got an 8 in IELTS who speak worse than this candidate? Yeah, I know at least one who got a 7.5 for speaking who definitely doesn't speak as well as this candidate. So candidate can get an 8, but 7.5 is absolutely fine. Nobody needs a 9, and if your goal is always I need that 9, well, it's too tough. Most people just don't get a 9. Yeah, anyway, so I guess I will leave it there for now. So I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of this candidate's speaking performance. Many people wrote in the comments section that she deserves a 6 or a 6.5. I feel like you should go and read your band descriptors again because, no, candidate is definitely at C1 level, no doubt about it. Could it be 7? Yes. Could it be 7.5? Yes. Could it be 8.0? Possibly. But candidate for me is definitely C1. If you disagree, please feel free to add any comments. Please do like the video and subscribe and do all of that good stuff. And if you would like your own free practice speaking test with this level of feedback, or if you would like me to check your IELTS writing, you can request this on my Telegram channel. A link to this Telegram channel is given in the description below. But I will leave it there for now. Have a wonderful day. See you all soon, and bye-bye.